Welcome to another edition of Becoming Visible 21 Tools to Stop Performing and Start Embodying Success. And today we have with us Bodhi Simpson. Hi, Bodhi.
Hi, Marsha. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited for you to be here. I'm going to tell our viewers a little bit about you and then we can talk about that a little bit. You are an art therapist, which is very exciting to me. I'm so interested in that, and it's also what I do. Bodhi is an art therapist who's located in Central Maine, and she enjoys reconnecting people with the magic and the mystery of life. She is also an award-winning author, visionary artist, and teacher. Ooh, that's exciting. Talk to me a little bit about this magic and mystery of life and how that works with art therapy.
Yes, in my own journey in exploration, also in working with others, I've realized that, so many of us have been caught up in the day-to-day and really disconnected from our bodies and our hearts and our presence in life. And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what I've realized is that it's like helping ourselves to remember and those we work with how to get back to our experience as a child where everything was alive,
Mm,
everything could talk to you. So we could be in those imaginal realms. We were in our bodies playing with the mud, playing with things, and not worrying about what other people thought about what we did. And so I feel like a lot
mm-hmm.
of the work as an art therapist, but also in my own personal journey of creativity is like, how can we get back to that and create from that
Mm-hmm.
place versus what we think other people
Mm-hmm.
do to us?
Yeah, that's a beautiful place to be when you're so connected with yourself. Well, tell us why you're so passionate about helping people find that place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like what I mentioned before, where it's like, it's so interesting. Well, in working with children, I feel like children will come in and they're just who they are. They're
Mm-hmm.
authentically who they are. And it's such that wonderful reminder when you're able to work with children. And then, working with teens and adults, often it's just like we can become disconnected from how we express ourselves most comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a lot of that, I feel like for teens especially, it's like, oh, that's not cool. Or,
Mm-hmm.
in class, in art class, I was told that I didn't do a good job and I didn't get an A, so I guess I'm not good at that. Somebody else is.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the passion for me is helping support people in finding their authentic expression and also in learning how to develop a relationship to what they've expressed so that they can be more
Mm-hmm.
conscious moving forward.
I love that. I'm just thinking a little bit about that whole reconnecting thing and about how as we grow and we're children and we're so connected with everything, and then as we get older it gets pushed down and the world comes in and we end up being disconnected adults and we don't remember being connected as a child. Maybe we do, but it's such a distant memory. Is that something that you have exercises or modalities for to help people reconnect with that inner child so that they can be creative?
Yes, because the only way, really, the only way to authentically create is to be open. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're kids, we're open to life. And so I feel like a lot of it is kind of noticing where we're blocking ourselves or where we're not believing. Maybe it's how we're thinking, we're not believing we're capable of our expression or we're not worthy of being seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right, so much really of the practices is um, helping us to, yeah, to open to life and whatever it is that comes through to help guide us.
So interesting. I think art therapy is such a underrated modality, and I'm sure there's so many different ways to do it. But how did you become Bodhi? How did you become who you are?
Wow, what a question. You mean as an
Yeah,
art therapist or like the creative or kind of
just the
artist?
creative person you are and everything that you were telling us about yourself in your bio. And it is hard to define yourself, but you're an author, you're an artist, you're a therapist. So kind of tell us how your journey led you to that.
Yes, what a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for yeah, the opportunity to kind of put into words um, a little bit of my journey as a little girl. As with many of us, I came into the world and there was some stress around
Mm-hmm.
within the family, within, yeah, just, um, I didn't have specifically like an art therapist. And so I
Mm-hmm.
did have people in my family that really enjoyed art making. And so I remember feeling happiest when I was creating, like with my
Mm-hmm.
mom and my aunt and my grandmother. And when it was really hard, I would really go inward and I would create, even like I remember being like in the bathroom when the shower was going and like creating in the window with the,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't, like anything formal. It was just like creating my feelings. And I would also create characters that I would talk to and that I knew they loved me. And I would
Mm-hmm.
develop a relationship with these characters that I would create so I didn't feel so lonely at times. And although that can sound kind of sad and depressing in some ways, I was very fulfilled in my creative expression. And so as I grew, as with really, I think many of us that go on to be therapists or coaches or, different support people, there's a reason we want to help others
Mm-hmm.
because we understand what's helped us. And so it's
Yeah.
just been such a pleasure to train to become an art therapist, to become the person I would have needed as a little girl to help me
Mm-hmm.
understand and process and show somebody, what I was feeling. And so I became an art therapist, and at this time, I am I'm teaching in a program that trains therapists to become LCPCs in Maine that incorporate creative expression into their work with clients. So that's really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a story out that's called The Girl Who Cried for the Earth, a story of hope, healing, and
Mm-hmm.
possibilities. And that story, for any of you that have read it or that are interested in it, it really was like my own creative journey of what we're talking about. Going
Mm-hmm.
back to the beginning of being a little girl and where did I become disconnected? Where did I become afraid? Where did I start to notice the world was a scary place? And so it kind of goes through this journey of feeling the pain and suffering of the world and feeling overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the little girl goes on this journey into the imaginal realms, like when she was a little girl. So beings came in her dreams. She was communicating again with nature, and all of this was guiding her forward and helped her to see a higher vision. And so, really, it's my journey.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the hope was it's not just for kids, it's just for anybody, any of us that forgot. So, it's created in a very childlike way, but to get to the core of what I was hoping to
Mm-hmm.
transmit.
And is
Um,
that a book?
yeah, it's a book. It's a book
Okay.
with about 30 paintings, and the paintings came through my own process. And then when I was done the paintings, I realized they were part of a larger story.
Yeah.
Bigger.
So it's like an essay.
Yeah, it's like a picture book.
Yeah. That is
And
so
that's what
cool.
I
I
have.
love that so much. I'm gonna have to grab that.
Oh, thank you. It does have a
Um,
practice in the back to help create inner peace, and then it
oh,
has some
good.
words of wisdom that came through while I was creating.
I love that. So speaking of practices, if somebody was watching today and they were feeling really disconnected from themselves and they wanted to try to recapture that, it sounds like reading your book would definitely help too. But
Yes.
how could they just do a quick little practice in the middle of their day, maybe right after this recording, to kind of reconnect with themselves and reconnect with their creativity, which I think inevitably leads to healing.
Absolutely. I want to say as well, like so many of us love creative expression, and I feel like there's a lot of fear as well, or like I said, kind of resistance of like, oh, I'm not good at that, or I don't know how to do that. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
want to acknowledge that there is vulnerability with this aspect, and I feel like that's a piece of maybe why people don't create this space all the time. So if you could just think about we're all human and playing and creating is a part of being human. And so if you can create some space to go within and express something so that you can really be aware of what you're thinking about, what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a place for you to see your own self first
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
be honest about what you actually feel and what you think about. And I would say I would recommend just grab some materials either that you have or that you want to try. So I like to
Mm-hmm.
tell people get a pretty basket and just
Mm-hmm.
get some like markers, pastels, color pencils, watercolor, and
Hmm.
make it like a little sacred special basket and um, put it in a safe space. And then when you have a minute, it can be 2 to 5 minutes.
Hmm.
Just choose colors that feel like how you're feeling. And as you're expressing that onto the page, you can also be mindful, kind of have a dual awareness of um, expressing you're in a receptive state and just being
Hmm.
mindful of what kind of thoughts are coming to you. You might be somebody that has visions come to you at that time, or it might be something of like, oh, Bodhi, this is just a big mess of scribbles. What even, this is trash. No, no, it's not trash. You can sit with it, whatever you expressed in that 2 minutes,
Hmm.
and just get curious about what does this remind me of? Oh, this color brown really reminds me of what I went through last week at work. That was really hard. So it's
Mm.
dialoguing and opening yourself, just like when we were little kids, to um,
Hmm.
communicating with what's come through, because anything we express is a reflection of ourselves. So it's just creating
Hmm.
that space to get curious.
Yeah.
And for those people that are maybe thinking like, that sounds really complicated, you could, some people really love journaling. So you could, like I said, take a color even, and then just have your journal as you're looking at your image. What does it remind you of? And do some journaling if that
Mm.
concrete piece is more needed. But it just
Yeah.
helps to become that mirror,
Yeah.
the invisible
Just
feelings.
just making the time and space for yourself to tend to yourself and to your inner self.
Yes.
I love that. I have a lot of either professional artists or aspiring artists in my sphere because I'm both of those things, I think, simultaneously also. But I know that I tend to fall into that place that you were discussing a minute ago. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be sellable to make art. Everything you do doesn't have to have a purpose other than your own internal purpose. And if a person was watching and they were a professional artist, but they're feeling unfulfilled because they maybe feel like they're just always creating for somebody else, how can they they're already creative and they already have that creative piece inside of them that they know and respect, but how do they bring that down to themselves and make it for them instead of for the masses?
I'm actually really glad you're speaking to this because I feel like those people that are classically trained in any art
Hmm.
modality, it's actually the hardest population I work with
Yeah.
to, yeah, to get out of that, like you said, perfectionism, that what's expected. And
Hmm.
so it may be a challenge for you to really get into the process, but just know that you can always create something from the process. So
Mm.
you can be messy with it, get into that receptive state and allow
Yeah.
what you create to be a mirror, but that could inspire you to like, oh, I'm going to paint a painting from this. So let's
Hmm.
think of it like that, like the the getting things out, expressing them, allowing them
Kind
to,
of like doing a study maybe,
yeah, yeah,
but you're
like a
with
rough
no
draft.
intention, with no intention of
No perfection. No.
right, of perfection or monetization of what have you, because
Mm.
I think when you become a professional artist and your income is tied to your art, that kind of puts you in a mindset of production. I have to make these things to sell these things to pay my bills. And I think that's a really slippery slope to find yourself on, because I believe that when people view your art, they feel the feelings that you felt when you made it.
Mm.
That's always, I mean, that's how I work with my photography. And I just think it's so important to not have an overriding intention, just to do it for the sake of doing it. And I'm working on that within myself too.
Yes. And you might find your authentic expression and
Hmm.
really be inspired by that and totally
Yeah.
change the way you
Yeah.
do everything.
Yeah. I love that so much. So you have a free gift for our viewers today. Tell us about that, what it is, and why they should grab it today.
Yes, it's a so I have what you'll see is a little place to sign up for my blog. And when you
Mm-hmm.
sign up for the blog, you will receive a PDF with a creative meditative practice.
Oh,
And it has
nice.
a little bit of both worlds. So it does have some structure and a word to it, and it also has
Mm-hmm.
that kind of receptive creating because I find that especially for those of us that are kind of just starting this work, it does help to have more structure in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
than that
Yeah.
kind of free, what I was just talking about. So it's really, it is helping to invite you into clarifying an intent to get really clear about an energy. So kind of what you talked about with as you're expressing your art, there's an energy that's embedded into it that we can
Mm-hmm.
perceive. Um, this is connecting your heart and your mind. So, um, what's the energy that I want to practice nurturing and embodying in my life? And then in your practice, in your meditative practice, practicing feeling that. And so with like
Mm-hmm.
neuroscience, of course, we're regulating our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
also really wiring our perspective maybe to the more negative bias to a more positive
Mm-hmm.
focus of our intent. So it's a wonderful way to begin.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's important to redefine art also as anything creative, as opposed to the narrow parameters I think that some of us get into of what is art and what isn't art. And the truth is that everything you do that creates, you're creating your life on a daily basis, you're creating your experiences, you're creating your
Yes.
world. And so we're all artists, whether we realize it or not. And I just jotted this down because I'm feeling so inspired today because I'm talking to artists, and I just jotted this down. Art is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And that's really what I'm hearing from you, is that this is what's missing for people. This is why people are not happy, because we're so disconnected from our creativity.
Yeah, well, like you said, we're creating all the time. We're also in our imaginations all the time, usually
Mhm,
worrying about the worst case scenarios or
mhm,
thinking about all the terrible things in the news.
mhm,
And so this is just like, right, how can we consciously be mindful of what we're creating in our life and even in our imaginations? What are we imagining? Because also what we imagine is
mhm,
what we create.
mhm.
So it's all of it.
Oh my goodness. That's so deep and so juicy. And I have enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us here today. And don't forget to get Bodhi's free gift, as she mentioned, at the link below. And we will sign off for this edition of Becoming Visible. Thanks for being with us, Bodhi.
Thanks, Marsha.
All right. Bye bye.
Everybody.